Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to first thank Fred Shibley for being out of my way and allowing me my constitutional right to be at this podium. What an honor. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. The last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been tracking those steps and tracking them back many, many years. For sake of brevity, understanding we all have something to do later today, I'm going back to 1973. Because in 1973, it was my mother who got me interested in government. And for those of you old enough to remember, that was the height of the Watergate hearings and trials during the summer. I gotta believe that I was the only 10-year-old who would come in the afternoon, spend time with my mom, and watch that unfold. My parents weren't political. My dad may have been to one township meeting, but they instilled in me the need to take an interest in what's happening around you. And I never let up on that. The benefits that I received from my mom in that took me into 5th grade, where my social studies teacher, Mr. Hillier, who both of my son and daughter had the privilege to be in Mr. Hillier's class, really helped us out, because he had this thing called current events. And if you could talk about current events, you got out of school 15 minutes early. You could be the first one in line on the bus. And in the fall and the spring, those current event meetings took place outside. I was a regular reader of Time magazine at that time, Detroit News, and I was prepared. It also got me a spot on the safety patrol. My mom had a saying that she always instilled in us, and it was, remember who you are and what you stand for. My dad had a little different spin on it. His was, set your alarm. When I put those two things together, that's the bedrock, that's the foundation that got me here. I'm not going to tell you how special it was to get here, because all of you have been on the same journey. I'm not going to tell you how special my 2 kids are, Lindsay and Anson, who are with me. I just want you to know that. Lindsay followed in the family business and has done some political work. I've worked on a congressional campaign and had worked in Washington, D.C., and is now doing marketing communications for an investment firm. She's doing fine. Anson, on the other hand, not so much. But I leaned on him in so many different ways. Anson and I's future together in 2019 is going to be his turn. Thank you. I remember back in the house, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time dwelling on our house days, but they had that bring your kid to work thing. And they would come and they would get their T-shirts, and it was just a big day. And I was proud to have my kids there. But driving home, Anson is a pretty creative kid. And it only took him that one day hanging out in the house to start to pick up the ability to imitate many characters over there. His first one was a guy that I respect, a guy that taught me a lot about media relations, and that's John Perry. If you get a minute, pick up Anson's John Perry, distinctive voice in that imitation. It's just wonderful. My sister Deb. What a good stand-in. She's one of the few that understand how Mertz works. I put her through so many different campaigns and through so much stress. And she's a perfectionist, and that clunky software, as it's always been explained. Everybody in here understands it. Now, she hasn't kept me out of the penalty box in every single one of those elections, but her heart was big enough to help me through all of that. And my sister-in-law, Heather. Heather never missed a parade, an event, moving kids around. And, you know, got to be careful what I say about campaign finance, because I don't think she ever didn't bring 30 pounds of candy to the parades. Thank you, Heather. I'm also blessed to have two really cool nephews, Brando and Colin. Special because I didn't have to teach him how to protect the last name. I enjoy the back and forth with them. I put a saying on them that I always give credit when I get a good saying, and this credit goes to Senator Robertson. And I told Brandon, some of these campaigns get very difficult, and you have to fight them and win them at the end of a broken whiskey bottle. I know that that is circulating through Michigan State. He's probably used it 500 times, and I hope he footnotes David Robertson. Which, David, that wasn't the best quote you ever had. That one about the glass eye. Leave that right where it's at. I want to thank, everybody has an entry into this business, and I want to thank the person who extended the offer to me, or the opportunity to get me to run for office, and that's Pat Accavetti. The Accavettis had a strong tradition in St. Clair County at the board level, county board level. Pat Accavetti's mother, or wife, Mary Ann, was county chair. Mary Ann passed away early. Pat took over as county chair, and he called me one day and said, hey, we want to get you on the county board. And I immediately thought that the county board, that's a job for old people. But I gave it some thought, and he says, well, don't think too long, because the filing deadline is tomorrow. And I made the determination I was in the right spot in my life to start this journey, and it's been amazing. Many of you will know Pat's son, Danny Accavetti, affectionately referred to as the gymnast. I had no idea that there was another step beyond the County Board of Commissioners, and it didn't take long before we realized how the game worked, and Danny ended up coming to Lansing at about the same time I came to the county board. We became friends. My path took me here and got us to 2005, where we came into the caucus and were assigned a mentor, and Danny was my mentor. Not convinced that was the perfect mentor for me at that time in my life, but it certainly was beneficial, because he helped me understand and pick the lock that is the legislature. Danny remained my mentor until one day I was called in, Danny and I, who sat next to each other, were called into the caucus room over in the House by then Chief of Staff Jim Holcomb. And I thought, hey, here's my big break. Jim's going to have me work on something special, or I got a cool bill package that I'm going to run. That was not the case. Holcomb said, I need the room, cleared out staff, and as soon as that big door closed, what the heck were you guys thinking? Well, I never did tell Danny, but that was the time I released him as my mentor. But that's also the time when he became one of my best friends. I want to talk about central staff for just a minute. All of you work to fulfill the mission. Thank you so much for what you do. You've all been thanked before. Let me do that also. I'm going to single out a couple people. Ann Blankenhorn. And we threw everything imaginable at you, and you turned it around, and you perfected it, and you worked it, and you continue to support me, my office, and the entire education community in the state of Michigan. Thank you. Bob Wilson. Bob isn't here anymore. I think Bob Wilson is probably the most underutilized asset that the state of Michigan has. I didn't know that until it was too late, when a proposed nuclear waste dump was talked about on the banks of Lake Huron. I sat down with Bob, and we put together an unbelievable strategy with every angle and facet that you could imagine, all the communications to back it up, but more importantly, 20 or 30 years worth of knowledge as to how environmental policy works in the state of Michigan. He may not have stopped it, but we certainly got several years of delay. Scott Hughes. Where's Scott? Wherever you are, if I'm ever held hostage, I want you negotiating my release. I learned more watching Scott operate on the retirement reform from him than I did probably from anybody. Mike Ferlin and his team of specialists. Words like commitment, dedication, and service come to mind. So does trust. Mike, everybody has talked about you and your team. I suggest you use that political goodwill that's bundled up and maybe talk to the future majority leader, Mike Shirkey, and see if you can get him to reinstate those burgundy sport coats again. Nobody's mentioned Governor Granholm, so let me be the first. Or if they have, I didn't pick it up. I'm not talking about Governor Granholm on CNN. I'm not talking about Governor Granholm at the Democratic National Convention. I'm talking about Governor Granholm, who tapped me on the shoulder and agreed to do a bill signing for a family back home who lost their daughter to a drug overdose. She did that on this young lady's birthday, and it still means everything to this family in October. All right, back to staff again. My staff, my team. Zoe Harness. I didn't have you for long. I didn't get to know you as well as I would have liked. You have shined for us. I don't know everything that you've done. Summer was long. We didn't spend a lot of time here. But a clear indication is, if I don't have to deal with it, you've probably already taken care of it. Thank you. Justin Hoffman. Oh boy. Justin came to me from Michigan State as an intern. Interns come and go. We're not always in the office. I was told we have somebody from the district. Okay, great. I knew Justin's parents very well. Got to know Justin and did a great job. He then volunteered to work on my 2014 re-election campaign, and we've been together ever since. Thank you, Justin. David Rainey, my chief of staff currently. David's going to be around for a while. You may recognize him by his tall frame and his fedora, but sooner or later you're going to recognize him for the ability that he has. He's going to shine. Thank you, David. Recent past members. Brad Weaver. I think I see you up there, Brad. Are you up there? All right, there you are. I see your whiskers. Brad came to me and I got his service for a year. Brad replaced Brenda Resch. I don't want to say it was a perfect slot, but it almost was. Brad's knowledge of public education, school choice, and the overall workings of the legislature served me well. I didn't have him long, but my conversation with Brad from the beginning was, we want to keep you moving. He's been moving. He's going to keep moving. Adam Skubik, no relation to Tim. John Brooks, Kevin Gardner, Laura Hayes, Matt Evans, Rami Haddad, Megan Richardson, and Kristen Turnbull. All great people that helped me through the process. And then there's Brenda. Hey, Brenda. I figure if I talk fast enough, I won't get caught up in it, but we'll see how that goes. I got to know Brenda when she was on House Republican Policy Office as the education advisor back in 2008 or 9. And at the time, knew that she was married to our communications guy, Matt Resch, but didn't know much more about that. How quickly that changed. There was a vacancy on the Education Committee. I asked then leader Kevin Elsenheimer if I could have that spot. He thought I was crazy. But I knew that there was enough support around me where, number one, I could go in there and learn. And I knew that the level of support and knowledge around that issue could give me a potential opportunity to lead that. And it came with Brenda. Many of you have had direct dealings with Brenda. I don't think I have to apologize for any of the things that she has done, because she's done them with sincerity, with thoroughness, and with a strong hand. We could get into an argument with Senator Boer and Senator Hansen about who had the best chief of staff. It's a fool's errand. I got it. And as I'm looking at Pete, Jeffy wasn't that good. Maybe for you, but not for me. Brenda, thank you. And by extension, thank your husband. You all know Matt. He's worked with us. He's worked around town. He's a brilliant, brilliant strategist. And I got to believe that no matter what I was paying Brenda, it was only half of the job that I was getting in return. Brenda and Matt positioned me with the media in ways I never even knew were possible. They positioned me with the strongest policy argument, and they positioned me with loyalty. Hard combination to replicate. Thank you, thank Matt, and thank your kids. All right. Now to our members. Leader Meekoff. Bear with me, because after that last meeting we had about an hour ago, I have to change my remarks. Can I get back to you? That's a tough dude right there. And I don't think it's personal. In fact, I know it's for the benefit of this institution. And it's been said by other members, one of the greatest privileges I've had is to be able to have full control of the committee and the decisions and the bills that come and go in there. That was always the case up until an hour ago. But thank you, I respect you, and you've done a great job leading this caucus. The other leader, Senator Andick. Listen up. Yesterday we heard from Senator Kniezek about a change in personnel on the Education Committee. I want to thank you for being proactive, reaching out to me to help me get rid of Senator Kniezek. I know that that could have potentially caused you a lot of grief within your caucus, but you stuck with it, and you gave me Senator Hopgood. What a trade. Senator Kniezek, you have always been one step ahead of me. Well, I shouldn't say always. You were 24 hours ahead of me yesterday in breaking this news. But you and I will see each other again, and we may be sparring over public policy or foreign policy but we'll be at it again. Senator Casperson, 7 years, 11 months, 2 weeks, and 6 hours as your vice chair on natural resources. Never once did you let me hold that gavel until yesterday. And it was for something that you needed. We've dealt with everything from wolves to wetlands to weight limits to gravel pits to bottomlands to PILT property rights, timber mining, flooding, frozen pipes, copper, iron ore, rail, EPA, shipping, ballast water. It never ended. It was your agenda, and I was happy to support it. Not always the easiest votes. I only hope in the remaining week left that I can get at least one out of you. Thank you, buddy. Senator Boer, by far the most prepared senator I've ever worked with, right up until this week. That may be a reflection of staff, but I think it's a reflection of you and the seriousness in which you take your job. I want to thank you for visiting my district, for helping me after almost 14 years to get a capital outlay project for my community college. I want to thank you for that. I had no expectations, but in the back of my mind, I was hoping that there could be potentially an honorary associate's degree coming from SC4 for me. That didn't happen, but that's not on you. Senator Nolenberg, you and I shared something with our fathers, dementia. You helped me unlock a pathway to my dad by explaining to me how you communicated with your father. Thank you. Senator Green, it's been a pleasure working with you. It's a pleasure working with your son. Redistricting happened almost 5 years ago. You don't represent Huron County anymore. Just go away. Senator Hune, we're going to hear from you later, but one of the most profound things I ever got out of you, well, probably two things. When the departments aren't listening, send them a letter. And then years ago, when I first met Joe, working around, when we had a conversation about how to raise money in this town, how to position yourself. And Joe had some really good advice. I didn't take it, but I heard it, and I remembered it. And that advice was, I don't take on monopolies. Thank you for that, Joe. Senator Hansen, it's been a pleasure being on your K-12 subcommittee. I wanted to always give you the impression that you were making the calls. You have passion. It came a little bit after my entry into education, but you proved knowledgeable, committed, and passionate about public education. And now to my bookends. Senator Hildebrand, Senator Prose. You guys don't know this, but when I came here in 2005, I was way behind the curve. And so I started looking at the landscape to see who's doing what, who knows what, and quite frankly, who can help me the most to adjust to something that I was not ready for. And I mentally picked you too. I never told you that because I thought that the free-flowing knowledge may not come. But I watched everything that you guys did. I watched how you operate, I watched how you run your families, and I watched how you run your offices. And I've leaned into both of you guys without you knowing. And it's helped me. Many of you may or may not know, me and pros have been sitting next to each other for a long time. We even sit next to each other in caucus. I always believed that you were who you hung around with. And I feel that I'm more rounded because of you guys. Senator Hildebrand, I want to thank you for an opportunity that you gave me that I wasn't expecting. And it was done in such a smooth way. We just come into the Senate and going through our leadership elections, and we were at the long conference table, and it came time for nominations for assistant floor leader. Remember that? All the chairs are in a row. Hildy's a couple doors down from me. It came to open nominations. He moved his shoulder back about 3 inches, looked at me. I said, and he nominated me right there. I had no idea that I'd ever have an opportunity to serve on a leadership team. Thank you for that. Now that led to a real awkward conversation with the new Senate Majority Leader, Randy Richardville. That started out sort of like, hey, Randy, congratulations. I was with you the whole time. Thank you for that opportunity, and it was a pleasure. And at the time, I didn't even know if I was even invited to leadership meetings. I wasn't a part of that thing, but anyway, that's where we're at today. That's where my footsteps have taken me. I look at this chamber, and I don't see a mitten. I see a square box. And after 8 years in here, this is what Michigan looks like. You, each and every one of you, whether you are a member, a staff, are a window into your district. I will probably never know more about this state after next Thursday than I do on next Thursday. I don't know if I'll ever have a job like this again, where we start with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. And I know I'll never have this window again. Jack, as I was looking over the state of Michigan, I saw the highest point in it, and there you are with that red tie on. Jack, your help in my congressional race was amazing. But it wasn't like it didn't come with a challenge. The challenge was, how do you take a picture with a guy that's 6'5"? And how do you get that on a piece of lit into Macomb County without looking so small? Jack, I'm going to disclose this in the event that someday you find out, but there may be a few Photoshop pictures of you and I floating around. There may be one of me just a little bit taller than you. And don't blame me, it was Anson who did that. I told Anson, you gotta make me a little bit bigger. Dad, you're not that big. Just a little bit bigger. A little bit bigger. Make me at least even with him. Dad, he's gonna kill you if he sees this. Thank you, Jack. Greatly appreciated. Thank you all for being part of this journey. I'm glad to share it with you. I'm fulfilled. I'm as happy to be leaving this with you as I was when I came in. God bless you all.